what's going on, folks? Chris here, and welcome back to another awesome episode of GS Talks. Tonight, I'm joined by a couple of fellas that you may know. They've been on the podcast before. As always, will be Scott. And he's my co-host. He basically is part of the show permanently. He will always be here. At least I hope so. With him, Justin returns. It's going to be a good one with him. It's glad to have him back. I'm glad to have him back for sure. Ben will be returning too. So that's 2 Sherlock Holmes in one sitting for the price of 1 podcast. Except this podcast is free, so you know, you do what you can. And the topic is going to be what genres need to come back, and tie with that is the source material versus movie adaptations. So on and on they go. It's going to be a good podcast. Sit back, relax, and here we go. What is up, people of the internet? It's your host, Chris, and welcome to another awesome podcast of GS Talks. Well, to get things out of the way and get going, to my right is Scott. Say hi, Scott.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
Justin is back.
What's up, everybody?
And Ben returns.
Hey, hey, hey.
So I want you all to check this out for a sec. Like, for real. We have 2 homes here. 2 homeses.
2 of them.
The past and the future. There you go. There's the fedora.
Oh,
Just the fedora.
We have 2 of them in our presence today.
How does that make you feel, Scott?
It's kind of a weird experience having them both in the same room, honestly. Like, this is unexpected.
Well, indeed. Just to get a little bit of home out of the way, Meteor Films is now a thing.
Yes, it is now.
So last time we talked to you guys, Mott's Productions 27 was the name of Scott's channel that we create short films on, and now it's Meteor Fist. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's Meteor Fist Films, and it's an official film production company. We actually have clientele and everything. Business is booming. It's really awesome. It's been a wonderful experience seeing that transition over.
And indeed, so Holmes University 4 just not to come out. It's been a while now. It's been about a month or two.
Month or so, yeah.
Month or so.
That's about right.
People are loving it.
And people are loving it. Fastest growing view-wise, right?
It's the fastest growing view-wise since Holmes 1. So it hit all the marks, and we weren't sure how it was going to do, saying like, oh man, this is ambitious, so maybe it'll do well. And then all of a sudden, just boom, that first day, looking at the view counts going up, going, oh man.
Yeah, man. How's that make you feel, Justin?
Pretty good, because I was a little nervous because it took us a while. It took us like a year, didn't it?
Yeah, we spent about a year in production.
It took us a year in production because of miscellaneous reasons, and then that one day when we had to film the big theater scene, that was a long day, but it was a lot of great shots, a lot of great moments, and it was a lot of fun.
And that theater scene was, really good, and that upped our production quality quite a bit.
It really did, and it was that perfect transition because we were going from just YouTube channel to production, and we rented out that theater, and we really pulled out all the stops, so you can kind of watch the production transition from it.
We were official.
When we got
like
there, I think all of us just kind of went, this is real.
Right.
It was just incredible.
And once again, that's Holmes University 4 Origins of the Fall that we're talking about. So go check it out on Meteor Fist Films on YouTube.
Yes.
All right. So, Ben, what do you got going on? You want to plug anything?
Well, I mean, the only really thing right now, it is November when we're filming this at least, And the most important thing I feel about November is, I got to say it, No Shave November. Now, don't be wrong. I don't want all the guys out there to be looking like homeless little vagabonds.
Within a month.
But you got to get something going. You got to get good something like the Mobius mustache. Maybe you get a good little handlebar going. And everything you do should be done through us.movember.com. It's a website. It really helps bring up awareness about prostate cancer. And the biggest goal is to gain money, show people our support for them by growing out our beards and mustaches. And we want to make sure young men don't die young.
Right on.
Wonderful cause.
Scott, plug your review channel.
Oh, yep. My review channel is MP27 Reviews. I will review just about anything. I am behind on some reviews, but I promise to catch those up. And then the one other thing I wanted to plug that dropped today that we're filming this now is for a channel called Survival U. We worked with a company called Emergency Response International. They help search and rescue patrols, that kind of thing. And we did a short film narrative that I directed regarding what happens if a child gets lost and how to properly prepare them for this. So it was a really awesome experience. We spent like about 6 months shooting it, and now here it is. And so I hope you guys go out and watch it on the channel Survival U with a U.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, today's topic, it's actually quite a bit of topics that we're going to tackle, but the main one is what genres need a comeback. Now, this classifies or goes under movies, music, books, whatever you want to talk about. So from left to right, starting with Ben, what's a genre that you think that needs to come back?
Well, one of the biggest things I think needs to come back is the essence of metal music. Now, recently we've had The Sound of Silence from Disturbed come out on the radio. It's been great to hear from him.
Great song.
It's an amazing song. After his throat surgery, he had to, the lead singer had to refocus everything he had.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes, he no longer can do his signature wah wah. He cannot do it anymore.
That is really depressing.
And so he refocused Disturbed to do a bit more melodic, a bit more intense music, instrument-wise, and I'm liking the surge. If you really haven't listened to metal lately, yeah, people say it's all screaming, it's nothing really solid, but some of the greatest metal artists are actually women who are classically trained in opera, if you didn't know that. Their music, while it is hard, it's intense, it's carnal, it gives you something that you need, the melody is on point, the music is on point, and every song that any metal band does fits a moment and feeling in your life, and I think they need to research into that.
Awesome.
Right on.
Justin, what do you got?
I'm gonna stick with the topic of music, and I got really 2 points on this, and one is I want funk to come back, and the reason I say this is because in my youth I used to breakdance, and I still do from time to time, but my favorite breakdance beats were old school funk sounds. Now a lot of the beats, they come from like techno-y stuff, but the best beats were all that funk and soul stuff like James Brown and cats like that. And I think that really needs to come back because it has a lot of feeling. And not to mention, not just feeling, but good feelings. Like when you hear it, you just feel really good about yourself and you want to dance or just kind of just chill, you know what I'm saying?
And stay on the topic of funk, interesting enough, like they tried to bring funk back. They kind of tried, like you said, electronically, it's not the same.
It's not.
And Bruno Mars did there for a second.
Bruno Mars is, I like Bruno Mars, don't get me wrong. And I think he tried, and especially like his Super Bowl halftime show. I thought that was really amazing with Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I thought that was really awesome. And it's something that I, as a fan of like funk and soul and in that genre, I personally enjoy. Now, the other thing I want to bring up, it's actually not technically genre. It is genre. What I want is real hip hop. Because I feel like hip-hop, or what we are classifying as hip-hop now, is really not hip-hop. It's just a lot of people just writing stuff down, and we're supposed to take it. And it's just like, oh, look, listen to this beat. I hate using this phrase, it's turnt. I hate that phrase.
Wait, T-U-N-T?
T-U-R-N-T, turnt. And I guess that's what the kids are into. And I guess from, again, being a breakdancer, I very much respect the real hip hop culture, but a lot of the rappers or whatever you want to call them now, they don't have the discipline to write down their lyrics, their bars, much less write 16 bars, which is a bare minimum for any MC. If you cannot write 16 bars and you do not have the fortitude to edit it and craft it. If you don't craft it and rewrite it, that is not an art form. It's just you writing stuff down. And if you can't even write to 16 bars, you don't deserve to call yourself an MC. So it's just something that I feel passionately about, especially with where hip-hop is going with cats like Lil Yachty. No.
Oh, come on, Justin. Don't you want that cake?
Oh.
Cake.
Boo.
Cake.
Boo on you, sir.
Before we get punches thrown here, Scott, what do you got?
Their stuff is a little more hardcore than mine. If we're sticking on the topic of music, I really want 80s power pop to come back. So
Bare
you
metal.
guys are all like metal and hip hop. I'm just like, I want power pop to come back. Like, I want Rick Springfield kind of stuff to come back. Like,
Twisted Sister would eat him alive.
like I
We're not
I like-
gonna take it.
within reason,
we
I
ain't gonna
like
take
these
it.
genres. But I personally just want the power pop to come back.
And to kind of add into that, because you kind of discussed this in the past, I want Arena Rock to kind of come back too.
Yeah, Arena Rock would be great to come back. Dragon Force tried it until they became,
Dragon Force.
Go Power Rangers, my friends.
I want that arena rock back, and we've almost gotten it once or twice, but it's nothing to really write home about.
Right. Well, if I could add on to a genre that I would like to have come back, it's video game related, but kind of like the craziness that we had in the 90s games, like it was kind of like all over the place. I want just like, it's kind of like throwing all the genres together, but like we don't have like any crazy arcadic games anymore. Everything's either kind of like simulation. Now hold on, you might be thinking, even at home, might be thinking something like Rocket League is arcadic, and I like Rocket League. Rocket League is very much fun. Overwatch is not so much arcade, it's team based, but I mean like games like, Crash. We don't get platformers like that anymore. We don't get Crash, we don't get Spyro, we don't get, and don't you dare say Skylanders. I'm going to slap you across the face. What do you got, Ben?
I am truly thankful that we live, and I know this is your spot, but let me just say that I'm truly thankful that we live in an age where children don't know the horror that is the grand ancient owl and the water temple.
To add on that, arcade games, they're still fun. They're awesome. And
they're not around anymore.
They're not around. And, the thing is, arcades themselves aren't really around. Right. So without arcades, you don't get arcade games. And I think we live in the video game culture the way it is. It's been booming, and it's wonderful and everything. But I think things are a little too easy. Like, have any like modern like gamer, teenager, whatever, have them play Battletoads with their best friend and see how long their friendship lasts. Right? Me and my brother almost killed each other trying to get through one level of Battletoads.
And it's kind of interesting because as this time is recording, the NES
the classic
came out, and it sold out everywhere. It's sold out.
If they made a Super NES Classic Edition, I would totally buy that.
I am going to be the voice of reason here. As you say, it's sold out, yes, but what you're not seeing is how many of them really they gave. It is a niche market. Every time people say, oh, we do this, it's sold out instantly. Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry, guys, but oh, man, they release a Firefly movie in theaters, biggest thing ever. That movie did not even make a profit.
Why do you always go back to Firefly?
No, I'm just saying that something like this happens. Yes, it's sold out, but when you
broke my heart, Scott.
4 of them to a standard store, yeah, they'll be the ones on the news where they have crates of them in like New York City. But like we're in most common stores, they'll release between maybe 3 and 4 of those. Those NES edition 3DSs and everything. Where it's like, they sell out. Yeah, we get like 5
I know, I understand that. I'm just saying that. It's amazing that a console that old, or it's not even that old console. It's just a concept that is old.
Yeah, but I don't really believe it's as big as we want it or think it to be. So that's where I kind of lie on that.
I have to agree with you, Scott. It really is something to say that you have it. Let's face it. Anyone, the 4 of us, anyone watching, we know how to download emulators.
And most of us Americans, or whoever, actually have an NES still.
Yeah.
So
it's gorgeous, man.
I know, right?
It makes you want to cry.
But hey, at least people now who bought them who aren't our age group.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's for. But they had the virtual what's it called on the Wii? The virtual
the thing on the Wii where you can download classic games and
like,
stuff.
Yeah.
The virtual console, I think it's called.
It's really just one of those cool things you can have right now. It's like Pokemon Go was 3 months ago. The hype's going to die. They'll still be available on Amazon, but what you gonna do? No one's gonna want one when you can just download it on your computer and play it on your monitor of a TV.
Even though they make emulators, what you're referring to, and they actually make like old school NES controllers for emulators, there's nothing better than plugging in your old NES, going to the old cartridge.
No one under 21 watching knows what the hell you're talking about right now.
Look, you see this?
I do. I know what that is. Do you know what a kid would see? He would see a useless piece of plastic and or can be confused that something bigger than his iPhone has less games than his iPhone.
Well, it depends on which iPhone you
get.
And I also would like to see the longevity of some of those where people buy it. But in all reality, is it going to be like when those Atari boxes came out with like the 50 to 100 games where it's like, oh yeah, we played it for like an hour and then we're done?
But, yes, Ben?
Another point, these new systems, no one will love them as much as we did, because I will bet you a year's salary they have fixed every bug, glitch, and exploit.
Now, you see, I think they left it. I honestly think they left those bug glitches and whatever you
They're
said.
not the same. The exploits is what he
Yeah,
said.
the exploits.
And I really hope you're right, Chris, because that's kind of one of the great things about those games are
Right.
the little glitches and the little things
see-
that made the game
But even,
unique.
like, I know this is a thing. Like in certain virtual consoles or emulators, you can save point. So it's cheating technically. If you die, I'll just jump back to the save point I made or save state, and you can beat any.
I remember.
I'm okay with that.
I'm
though.
not. Like, come on, old school gaming. You die, that's game over. You jump back to the beginning of that world, not that level necessarily.
But what game developers realized is that we have lives, so it's nice to be able to resume it if you can't play for very long.
So you're like a game that pretty much holds your hand throughout the whole thing.
It's not
with
holding your hand.
Tutorials. Back then, we had to figure that crap out.
We did. There was not a lot of instruction, but then again, that's not really fair because there's only like 3 buttons.
Okay.
It's not like
Yeah.
we have to figure out what the
True.
X and the trigger and the right bumper and the D-pad or whatever.
I'm making it sound a lot better than it actually was back then because I'm sure even NES is this before all our times technically. Like Super Nintendo was pretty much our time and 64 and PlayStation, all that stuff. But I meant like its original run.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what I meant.
honestly, I guess that's just my personal opinion. I honestly think because Scott's point is that they only have a lot and it's sold out, which is great and everything. But I think if they made a Super Nintendo version, I think we'd see something different. I think we'd actually get more people involved with that because as much as I love the original NES and everything.
There were so many better games on the NES.
It's kind of like comparing when the PlayStation jumped to the PlayStation 2.
Right.
And that's kind of the truth of it.
My same feeling, Ben. My same feeling. But like, hey, stay on that Super Nintendo. By the way, to self-promote my thing, top 5 SNES games coming out pretty soon here.
Only been in development for like
For like
3
a
years.
year. Don't you do that?
Oh, you've been talking about it for so long.
Yeah, but I hadn't. Okay.
Now, children,
yeah.
let's play nice.
It's coming. All right, Ben, what were you gonna say?
You know what? We passed my point that I wanted to add. You were saying something about kids understanding the frustration, and let me just say, going back to the water temple, if somebody was playing that on their computer, I'm pretty sure they'd be a lot more upset about destroying their $4,000 laptop than their $200.
But then you just enter your Game Genie code and you can jump the level.
Real gamers don't jump levels.
I know, but 5-year-old kids do.
5-year-old kids couldn't pass the
All right,
water temple.
listen. I taught my brother right. My brother is now 11 years old, Presley. When he was like 3, I introduced him to the NES and SNES. He grew up on retro gaming, and he's like better at gaming than I have ever been in my whole life. New games, I mean, too.
That's not saying much, Chris.
Hey,
Well, hold on, Chris. This goes back to great. Well, we
just
were trying
playing.
to talk about things coming back, genres coming
Yeah.
back. I want the genre of the single-player game coming
oh
back.
yes, I agree.
Don't get me wrong, Dark Souls
Yeah, I was just about to say Dark Souls
did
or
a
Bloodborne.
great job. Bloodborne did a great job, but when you reach a boss you can't quite beat, you, I, Scott, Justin, I'm sure we go, all right, we're going to go grind for like 3 days.
And there's a reason why I never played Dark Souls because of that reason.
When my little brother can't do it, he'll just call his buddy and they'll just,
Or just YouTube it.
or YouTube it and just spawn kill a hard boss.
We didn't have YouTube when
Exactly.
we couldn't
which is
get
why
past
we
the
had,
boss.
We had conversations like this and what we had to do when we got stuck. Like, let's say, if I could think of a think of the past of gaming wise, like in the PlayStation, or even the PS2. Metal Gear. Oh God.
Metal
talk
Gear
about-
Solid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's my
soaks up your
jam.
time, dude. That game is 50% gameplay and somehow 70% story still.
Do you know what needs to come
I approve of those numbers.
Do you know what needs to come back? An open world game that punishes you for being too strong. Don't get me wrong.
Dark
Scott-
Souls. What,
Like what do you mean by
did
that?
that?
Dark
know-
Souls.
You know what? Really, what I can think of, and it's kind of dumb. Spyro. No matter how far you got, the enemies were still just as difficult. But if you play Skyrim, I can go destroy people in 3 towns that destroyed me beforehand.
This is where the beauty of art is subjective. I always thought that Spyro was painfully easy, except for Ripto's Rage. Ripto's Rage was kind of annoying.
Spyro
but
was definitely not easy.
I actually thought the Crash Bandicoot was a lot harder.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree.
So much harder.
With the mix of that platforming and just the annoying amount of gaps, like who lives on a continent with that many gaps that kill you, and then you're just like always having to jump and die, and then the boss always has that pattern that changes just enough. Yeah. Oh,
Well, that's boss programming in general.
but I don't know. Crash Bandicoot nailed it so well.
Oh, yeah.
I am back to what Ben was saying about single player, and to a point, I very much agree because now gaming solely focus on multiplayer. Now, when I was a kid, the only thing I wanted to do was play games with my bigger brother, my brother Nick, into just co-op and stuff, which is what I was hoping we'd get eventually. Instead, we're like, oh, we have online multiplayer, but we don't have co-op play. You can't
what's
actually do
interesting?
that. You can't do a split screen. You
know
can't
what's
play with your
interesting?
homeboy.
They tried so hard to push co-op, say 8 or 6 years ago. But now, when they try to push co-op now, people are like, well, why just not do it multiplayer-wise? Why not just do multiplayer this, multiplayer that? It's because
Co-op bombed a lot more than they expected.
Exactly.
Although there were 1 or 2 titles that retained that success, that was Left 4 Dead and Halo. And then Call of Duty, when it had local multiplayer more prevalently. Gears of War
Horde
held
modes,
on to it.
Saints Row did it too, which was pretty awesome.
Saints Row
No one did
2.
the Saints Row 1, though.
Well, that also goes back to the whole thing where when we were kids, do you know who had video game systems with co-op? Families with either lots of friends or multiple children.
The best co-op story I could give is my friend who lived in Auburn. His name is Travis. I'm no longer friends with him because I don't have him anyways. I think he's in jail. But
We
anyways.
don't like you, Travis.
Hey, Travis, how's it
Sorry,
going?
you're in jail.
Sorry, buddy.
But what was I saying? His parents, or not his parents, I think they were his foster parents actually, whatever, were really rich. They had a lot of computers downstairs. This was my first exposure to LAN parties.
Oh, so good.
And
Oh,
with the game of the original StarCraft Brood War. Now, hours on end, like how many monitors around here? Times 10. And we would just do that for hours, and that's to me that's what co-op / LAN is.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to for the co-op. But what we were marketing now was multiplayer, where it's a bunch of rich, snotty, middle-class teenagers who don't want to go outside and play. Do you know
Right.
what we did? We went, yeah, this is so much fun. LAN party, Diablo. I have a headache. Let's go play tag outside for 3 hours, please.
I need fresh air.
But that type of gaming is gone. That after school Friday night, you go to your buddies, you grab your N64, you go play GoldenEye, you go play Super Smash Brothers.
I wouldn't say it's gone, but it's definitely
It's
on
on
the
less.
endangered species list.
Yeah.
No.
Which is why I'm kind of happy.
I
It's
still
also
know
because we
people who
grew up-
do stuff like that,
Like,
but
we
it
were
definitely
that
is few and
generation.
far
But we still
between.
do that.
But we grew up, we have lives, we have 40-hour work weeks, sometimes more, that we just don't have the time to all say, hey, let's all get into a house and let's do an insane amount of video gaming and drink black cherry soda until we puke.
Well, that's not quite true. Our generation will still do that. I still go out on Friday nights with my coworkers.
I do too, sometimes.
The kids now, they don't do that. I am.
Well, that's because these kids now are stupid.
I'm really upset to say that kids now, and I mean kids 13 to 15,
They're stupid.
they go drink and get high.
Yeah, well, I still do games with my friends. So, we still all do it. It's just less prevalent. But, my fondest memory was seriously just, Chris and I, Ben and I, all of us.
And we'll come back after this. Quick word from our sponsor that doesn't exist. What is up, people of the internet? We are back. That's Mega Neko, the milkshake that you're listening to. So go check them out on SoundCloud. It's a really good song. And we'll get back to what we're talking about. So we talked about what genres need to come back. We really stayed heavy on video games.
That was your fault, Chris.
I know. At least it was the superheroes.
We're not doing that.
Exactly.
No.
I'm pretty sure one of us wouldn't walk out of here alive.
So let's move on to our next topic tonight, which is books versus movies. Now, faithful adaptations, not so faithful adaptations.
Adaptations is the word you're looking for, Chris.
Thank you.
I'll take adaptations for 300.
Yeah. So, starting from right to left this time, I know, Scott, just off the top of your head, name some really good book to movie adaptations.
First off, Jaws. But sticking on the Spielberg train, Jurassic Park does not follow the book worth anything, but it's a great movie. And I actually say that the first Jack Reacher was a fantastic adaptation as well. I personally love that one. So those are the three off the top of my head in terms of adaptations. Also, a lot of people don't realize things like Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, indeed. I still haven't seen Blade Runner.
How dare you?
Well, there's like 8 different cuts, so
Exactly.
don't feel bad,
No,
Chris.
It's just
Real
it's not
talk.
so much that I don't want to. It's just I don't know which version to see.
That's a matter of opinion that I don't think you really want to go down that rabbit hole because someone's like, oh no, this is true, no, this is true. It's in that version doesn't
Why are
exist.
there so many versions? Just to quickly get out of the way, like spend 20 seconds.
It's
on
because
it.
they
I don't
couldn't
know.
agree on a cut to the film. There was a dispute between
Sounds
the
like
studio.
DC.
It is the definition of the ultimate dispute between a studio and the director and the actors because they all had radically different ideas of how they wanted it to be, so no one could agree. So they ended up making so many different versions that's how that happened.
Why are there so many different versions of Spider-Man?
Ooh,
Do
no
you really-
superhero.
No.
No. Well, I tell you what. If you all want to talk about superheroes, we'll spend the last 5 minutes of this podcast with nothing to do with superheroes. Now, but moving on to Justin.
I want to
Well, the
avoid that.
Okay, let's not go with Spider-Man, please, because that kind of goes as okay, I don't actually read a lot of books, and
Well, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be.
So I
Hey,
mostly-
let's just say that for the discussion's sake, 'cause I also said this at the beginning. Source material.
all right. For the sake of argument, I read a lot of comics, graphic novels, and the like. And off the top of my head, one comic that they made into a movie was Wanted. Angelina Jolie, James McAvoy,
It's
and
a comic book.
it was originally a comic book by Top Cow, written by Mark Miller, who also wrote Kick-Ass. So, in Wanted, in the movie, it's about a fraternity of assassins, but in the comic, it's about a fraternity of supervillains. And in the comic, the supervillains, they defeated all the superheroes, and they just wiped them away from existence, and they have little fragments in what? Comic books. And it teaches, the main character to be a supervillain and to not be, a wimp, essentially.
Gotcha.
And things ensue, and it's a very drastic difference because I guess they didn't think we can't sell supervillains to a general audience. The movie's rated R. Who cares?
Boy, did they make a mistake.
Yeah, and I wasn't a big fan of the movie. Like I love James McAvoy. I think he's awesome in a good majority of things that he does, and the cast was great. It's just I think if they did it more closer to the comic, it would have been better. But that's not always a good thing because sometimes comics get crazy.
Fair enough. Ben, what do you got?
Well, I'm not going to touch the whole superhero movie versus comic book issue.
thank God.
Everything is so messed up there. I'm going to
Thank you.
focus on some of the more prominent books coming out. We have Eragon, we have Twilight, we have 50 Shades of Grey. And going off each one of those, Eragon, great series. Movie didn't hold true. They were too worried about people reacting to certain things that were in the book that people loved that the general audiences wouldn't. People are too worried about general audiences. They recovered with Twilight, and by they I mean Hollywood. Twilight followed the book verbatim. It was a snore fest. The sequels recovered that, but they didn't hold as true to the books as the first one, which shows you that good balance you need. And then the third one, 50 Shades of Grey, took a story about a woman empowered through her sexuality, pardon my language, and the essence of what's real in our society, and turned it into a big softcore porn,
Yeah.
which was very unfortunate. And again, viewers, pardon my language, but it really shows you the difference between holding true to source material, creating your own thing, and finding a good median between the two. Case in point, I'm going to say it, Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. It was excellent. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed reading it. And the the movie took opportunities for creative inspiration that the book allowed, like the final battle scene. All you see in the book, spoiler alert everybody,
Spoilers.
is they get together, they stare at each other really hard, and the bad guys go away. and you don't know why. And the movie took that opportunity to go giant epic battle of death.
Right.
One thing I want to say with that is where sometimes taking, not necessarily following the book verbatim can go wrong. Thank you, Chris, for adjusting my microphone. Is Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and 2. Like, I get that studios want to cash out and everything on those, but my God, Mockingjay was the worst book. General consensus, but taking a book that doesn't have enough sustenance to last 2 movies and making it into 2 movies, yeah, they did virtually everything verbatim, but that isn't necessarily a good thing because there's all of those snooze fest scenes that you just don't like, and Mockingjay Part 2 was the definition of that.
I think it's just. I think Hollywood in general, whether it be comic books, or whatever, they haven't quite figured out a good balance, because if they think, oh, they do their own thing, then people who are like, oh, they didn't do this in the book and they did it in the movie, and then they give fans exactly what they want, which is a direct adaptation, and it kind of becomes a little boring, and you need to find balance because certain things do not work on film.
So with that, let's kind of I'll open mic this we all can speak freely. How do you make a good adaptation from book or source material to film? Because you have to make certain cuts, you have to add certain stuff just to make it feel like a complete film. So starting with Scott, because he's the film buff here.
What works for adapting a story is you have to then picture it as a movie in your head. And things in books can be written beautifully, like art, that are so compelling. But when you actually say what happened in this scene, and like Ben said, where it's just a staring contest. Yeah, that staring contest can be amazing in book form, but in movie form it doesn't really transition that well. So you have to say, well, how can I make this a little more compelling? And when we get to the next segment where there's book to movie adaptations that we would like to see or things like that, I have some examples. But there's... Like, for example, with Hunger Games, you didn't need all of those scenes where they're just sitting there pouting, talking about their relationship. Yeah, they were important, but you can cut that down and maybe add a chase scene or some kind of suspense where you have that building tension, because tension is just as good as that explosive action sometimes.
Agreed. Justin?
Don't really have a lot to add on to it. It's just it's like what Scott said. You got to imagine it as a film, and if you're translating it into film, you expect certain things. Just like when you read a book, you expect certain things in the books. You get a lot of the inner monologue, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. The rage building up, and when you're on screen, you don't get those words. You don't get that. It's very much visual, and if it's not appealing visually, it's not going to work. And sometimes there's a lot of extra stuff in books that for movies, they slow down the pace, and pacing is very important in movies. As opposed to books where, pacing is important, but it's easier to get in extra detail as opposed to movies where we're like, okay, what does this scene have to do with the rest of the movie? And if it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, then there's no point in it being in there.
Right.
So
one thing I want to chime in is say a really great adaptation that starts faithful and then just goes off the rails and tries something its own, and that can work too, is totally changing it radically, is the TV show from FX, The Strain. Season 1 follows the book almost word for word, and then Season 2, about the midway point, branches off and does something so radically different, and now it's a totally different series. Game of Thrones did the same thing, but The Strain is still an incredibly faithful adaptation, but it tried something its own, and that almost gives it more credit for trying that and succeeding.
Speaking of The Strain, Scott, you have a bunch of reviews on The Strain.
Yes, I do.
On your channel, MB27 Reviews. I'm
one of the top reviewed Strain review areas, networks, or whatever you want to call it. They love me.
That's a quote, ladies and gentlemen. Ben, to go back to you.
Well, I think it also really depends on when the book comes out versus when the movie comes out, and how a general idea is presented versus the verbatim. I mean, take Interview with the Vampire, take Harry Potter, I actually can't think of any more. But if you take those two movies, they have the same outline as the book. The essence, the feeling, the pitch, the delivery are both completely different, but the movies can stand alone from the books. and that's what makes them powerful. They have the same idea. I defeated Voldemort, woohoo! But we don't have the chase scene of the keys in the first book versus the first movie. And that chase scene is so intense and powerful, it makes you want to keep reading. But we don't have the same impact that we do in the movie. Interview with the Vampire and its subsequent sequel, Queen of the Damned. It's very powerful. It's a good movie. The books, like Scott was saying, have their own thing, and it makes them just as strong. What I think makes these movies not so good is like an Aragon. It follows the book, tries to do its own thing, and fails because the audience watching isn't the same audience that fell in love with the book, or it's the same audience that loves the book so much they can't stomach this change.
I think one of the keys also is to keep to the spirit. If you keep in this proper spirit of the material, the fans will recognize it and understand it.
Definitely. A book I actually did read and they made into a movie is called Battle Royale. And essentially, it was Hunger Games before Hunger Games. It was a Japanese novel that they literally adapted into a movie about a year or so later, and it's about essentially teenagers being forced to kill each other. They're not trained. They just give random weapons, randomly picked on an island. They have like 48 hours to kill each other before time runs out. And in the book, it is so detailed, and every little bit is very interesting because every character has a backstory, and whether you like them or not, and you don't know if they're going to die or if they're going to live, and you get to decide if you like them or hate them right before they die. And in the movie, that detail gets lost. But also, with that being said, they also changed a lot of things. Like, there was one character in the book who was part of the class, but he was a psychopath, and he just decided to be a part of the game by flipping a coin, and that character was changed in the movie as just someone who volunteered to be part of the game.
So small changes like that.
Yeah, and it's just like they didn't really need to make that change, but cutting down some of the bigger things maybe would have helped, because the movie's over 2 hours, possibly 2.5 hours long, and there's only so much details you can put in a movie medium like that until you're like, okay, this is kind of needs to get to the point faster.
We also got to think about the audience of when it was written versus the audience now versus readers versus non-readers. Can you guys, we've all read Catcher in the Rye, right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if that's been put into a movie now? A, people wouldn't have read the original book, and B, the movie would be socially destroyed, even though it is a classic and it is a wonderful read.
It would be a wonderful read, but it would be a painfully awful and boring movie. I mean, some people liked it, but that new Great Gatsby film.
So that's a good segue, because that's going to segue us into adaptations that we don't want to see in the future that might become like a Hollywood movie.
Or that we want to see, right?
Or want to see. So we'll start with, that good point. We'll start with want to see and then go into not want to see. So starting with Justin, because I haven't started with him yet.
Start with me, huh? The guy that doesn't read a lot of books.
Well, again, source material.
Okay. All right. I got one. Because I know Disney's and they're doing a lot of the Star Wars stuff, and I'm a big fan of the character Darth Bane. And I would like to see some kind of adaptation of his story because he's so important to the idea of the Sith and the rule of two. And that kind of set the tone for what eventually became, Emperor Palpatine, creating the Empire and this, that, and the other. And I think that's really important to say, especially since we don't get a lot of looks at the Old Republic.
Which I hope that we do someday. I really do.
Me
those
too, man.
Games are amazing.
Yeah,
the story,
they're pretty great.
Long, but the grind is real on that. Ben, what do you got?
I would really, really love to see a remake, an adaptation, or a continuation of the Interview with a Vampire series. And
sorry. Two things. One, they made Queen of the Damned. Not a good movie, but they did. But I read a while back that Universal, I believe, are trying to redo the entire book series of Interview with the Vampire and Lestat and everything. But again, things get stuck in development really badly, especially with adaptations like that. I personally would love to see it, but you never know.
It's just such a powerful story, and everything's written in such a way where my imagination can just go with it.
I got you.
And if they can put that on the screen, even if it's Twilight bad, if it's on the screen, it's still a powerful enough story that I think the studio could break even. They should do it. and not, people know because Interview with the Vampire, classic,
Indeed.
Queen of the Damned, flop.
It was not good, y'all. It
There-
was not.
They're 2 of a series of, I think, 11 now.
Really, 11?
I think so. She just keeps writing and expanding this universe.
All right.
It's
Right on.
like
More power to you.
stopping Harry Potter after the 2nd book because everyone was really upset that we killed a giant snake.
That was the second one?
Yes.
That's right. That was the second one. Chamber of Secrets.
Yep.
Right.
How dare you put Ginny in danger? We're going to shut this studio down.
How dare you?
Making just complete brush stroke. Well, I can't think of the word. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I think we get it.
All right. Scott.
Okay, so in adaptations I really want to see, it's a book that just came out recently called The Woman in Cabin 10. And The Woman in Cabin 10 is an Alfred Hitchcock-style thriller about a woman on a boat. She's actually not in Cabin 10, but there is a woman in Cabin 10, and when she's in her room, she's the only witness to a murder. And so there is a presumed serial killer on this boat trapped with them for an extended period of time, and it's do you believe her, do you not? And it's a very compelling Hitchcockian style thriller that I feel like would be an amazing film adaptation. It reads really fast. I read it in like a day and a half. It's incredible.
Is that what you were tweeting about?
Yeah, I was tweeting about The Woman in Cabin 10 because the beginning is terrible, but then once you get past that first like 50 pages, it hits, and it hits
I remember I was
hard.
watching your Twitter feed and like, well, I wasn't just like stalking you on Twitter.
Well, I mean, you know,
but like,
people do.
Your updates are really there because I'm on Twitter not so much constantly, but every now and then
Yeah.
like you're like, oh, this book, I don't know if I.
Yeah, because like that first 50 pages were a little kind of frankly lame, but I feel like a film could make that more compelling because that would really just be like the first couple scenes. But then once it hits hard, and it's relentless because it's all told from her perspective. So
Right.
you could do that kind of film of is she crazy, is she not? Because I mean, in all reality, I don't want to spoil anything, but she's the only person who sees this. So
Interesting.
it's a very unique perspective, and I would really love to see that be a film. The other thing is I really want to see the Ender's Game film adaptations continue because the movie itself was a amazing adaptation, and it needed
Really,
some
Justin?
sequels.
It was okay.
Was it on point?
I thought it was on point.
If it was on point with adaptation, that's great. But as a movie and someone who has not read the books, it was okay.
As someone who has read the books, please answer me this question, Scott.
Yeah.
Was there the shower scene?
Yes. And they did not pull punches in the shower scene. That was actually an incredibly disturbing scene if you've ever been bullied or had to deal with things like that.
But no
Excellent
spoilers.
adaptation.
But no spoilers. Go
None,
watch
none at
or
all.
read the book. Now that's interesting that you said that Justin, that you brought up. I never read it, but the movie was blah blah blah. Adaptations that go from the source material, the general audience of the movie, because we kind of touched this and go with
Yeah.
it. I don't know how to word this. Like, can there be an audience for or people who don't like necessarily know the book or even ever read the book or source
Yeah,
material?
absolutely. My girlfriend never read the book, and she loved the movie.
Okay, interesting.
Well, it's a yes and no kind of mentality. I mean, if you ever read Twilight, I keep going back to Twilight, but you go to watch it, you'd think, I would never read this book.
Right. That's what I've never read the book. I watched the first movie. I was like,
But
I'm
if
so
you,
bored.
But if you watch The Lord of the Rings, you're just overwhelmed and excited like
Oh,
I
yeah.
was.
You know what?
And then you
Honestly,
go back to the book and you
honestly,
go, what the heck is this?
I've read
Yeah.
the book. I enjoyed the movie way more than the book.
There's a lot. It goes back to what I was saying earlier.
nerd, I
If you
love the Lord
have
of the Rings books.
the books have so much information and so many things that they did.
They throw at you. You're right.
And when Peter Jackson they made the movie, they cut out what wasn't necessary. But also,
Oh, I love Peter Jackson.
but they also have like 4-hour extended cuts of each movie. So
on them all.
you know what? I think that's probably going to be the closest you will ever get to something to be as accurate as humanly possible to the source material. And cutting out what doesn't matter.
I'm gonna just say this, just because the two fandoms are always at each other's throats. There is only one return. It is of the Jedi.
Oh, are we going to get into this?
Use profanity, and we are not going to get into this because Lord of the Rings is the best adapted work of all time.
Oh, now that we're getting to that, that's actually let's argument that. Do we have any rebuttals of most faithful adaptation?
You go.
Or the best adaptation ever from any source of material at all?
The most faithful adaptation.
I said best.
The best.
Okay, fine. Not faithful.
Extended
best.
cuts are faithful.
Best.
The best, most faithful, most amazing adaptation.
Superman versus Batman.
No. How dare you?
How dare
Oh,
you?
y'all, we don't want to get into that right now.
Okay. Sorry, I had to. I don't believe that at all. Go
The
ahead.
most amazing, most true to the story,
Get on with
most enjoyable adaptation of book to movie I have ever seen.
He's getting teary-eyed, y'all.
Uh-oh, you can see this.
He's tearing up.
Benjamin Rabbit.
What?
I got let down.
I got nothing
What the
for that
hell?
one.
So basically, the entire
What on earth is Benjamin Rabbit?
It's like building this hype.
I know.
And
I was expecting like something. Not Benjamin Rabbit. Explain.
Waiting for the mic to drop, but
little joke for our viewers and for everyone here. Benjamin Rabbit was an old picture book. His name was Benjamin Rabbit. He would always get into Old Man Gregor's garden, and Old Gregor captured him and he was gonna took
I
him
remember
into a
Benjamin
stew.
Rabbit. Oh my gosh! Yes. I remember. You're right. It totally is the most best. Oh my god! I just used
So-
my fantasy.
he used a swear.
So the
Shame.
the joke is
Shame.
the picture book, and what they did for the movie is they took the picture book and they made the pictures move.
Pretty much. Pretty
See,
much.
That's
hold
where I
on.
say,
Pause.
nay,
I have a
sir.
phone. I have a phone call from Mom.
Oh, we're gonna. That's fine, anyways, because we're actually almost out of time. So I want to thank you, fellas, for joining us here today. As Ben takes a phone call.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
You can hear that?
Yes. He's hungry, but he's not home.
So we're gonna say
Lord of the Rings is a masterpiece.
we're gonna wrap it up. Scott, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Of
course.
It's always a pleasure to have you as my co-host.
I try my best.
Justin, thank you for coming out on short noise. Short noise.
I try.
Chuck Norris.
This is so
Chuck
far the
Norris.
closest thing to a Holmes crossover that we've had. Yeah,
Ah.
we're talking to you, Benedict Cumberbatch. Thanks for not writing back.
Speaking of faithful adaptations,
We wrote him.
Love you,
I
Benedict.
actually didn't. I just wanted to
Holmes
say
University is a faithful adaptation-ish.
that. That is.
We just ran out of video space, everybody. So this is just audio now.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh,
That's fine. So thank you all for coming out, Ben.
Wait, well, ours is the best adaptation.
False.
I wouldn't go that far,
I
man.
wouldn't go that far either. I mean,
I love doing
technically
homes and
ours is
everything, but
original with the
Original with some stories that we've lightly followed.
Did you forget Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century?
Oh my God!
y'all, that show is garbage. I'm sorry, that was
your
Holmes University in the 22nd century. Anybody?
Oh,
I think it's gonna happen.
We don't have the CGI
our
budget.
franchise will not last that
what
long.
budget?
I bring
If we make the Holmes University 22, I promise you, we are doing Holmes University 22,
Well,
that's
the
also-
22nd century.
Hey, this has been GS Talks, everybody. I want to thank all of our guests for coming out tonight. Everyone say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Peace out.
And we'll see you next time.
Later.
Later.